Welcome to this explainer on SegWit transaction structure and witness data made by Forge College. Today, we're essentially putting on our hard hats for a full engineering teardown of a SegWit transaction, and we're taking it right down to the byte level. So if you've ever found yourself wondering what is actually happening under the hood when you send Bitcoin using modern standards, well, you are in exactly the right place.
All right, let's jump right in. To set the stage, let's quickly jog our memories about the core concept from our previous lesson. Remember our airport analogy? A legacy transaction is kind of like mixing up the passenger manifest with the actual heavy checked luggage. The signatures, which are the luggage in this scenario, were tangled right up in the transaction identifier data. It was literally like trying to find your boarding pass buried inside a locked suitcase. But a SegWit transaction? It neatly separates the two. It pulls those heavy signatures out and places them in a totally separate section. And that separation right there, that is the entire foundation of what we're going to look at today.
Here is our roadmap for the teardown. 1. The SegWit blueprint. 2. The marker and flag. 3. Relocating the witness data. 4. Mapping inputs to witnesses. And 5. Why byte structure matters. Let's get to it. Section 1. The SegWit blueprint. The byte-level layout.
Now, this perfectly illustrates the assembly line of a modern transaction. For legacy nodes, the structure was always super straightforward: version, inputs, outputs, and locktime. Nice and simple. But SegWit introduces a bit of a remodel. Notice how the new witness data is attached after the traditional inputs and outputs sequence, right before the locktime. It's honestly like building a massive garage onto the back of your house, but you didn't touch the front door. To the legacy nodes just walking by on the street, the house looks exactly the same. This clever reordering keeps the legacy serialization perfectly intact for older network participants, all while providing this extended blueprint for the upgraded network.
Before we go any deeper, we really need to clarify a crucial term, the txid, or txid. This stands for the witness inclusive hash. When we talk about a canonical transaction ID, the normal txid, it completely ignores that new garage we just built on the back of the house. It doesn't include the witness data at all. The wtxid, on the other hand, hashes the entire extended blueprint, witness bytes and all. It is the true, comprehensive footprint of the transaction. Moving on to Section 2, the marker and flag, SegWit's flare gun.
Okay, look at these two tiny hexadecimal bytes placed right after the version field, 0x00, 0x01. This is basically a flare gun going off in the code. It flashes and yells, "Hey, extended serialization ahead." If a parser sees this marker and flag, it immediately knows to expect that new layout with the relocated witness data we were just talking about. And if it doesn't see them, well, it just assumes it's reading a classic legacy transaction and processes it the old way. Simple as that.
Section 3. Relocating the witness data. Where exactly are the signatures?
So if you ever try to parse a native SegWit spend yourself, and you look at the traditional scriptSig field in the input, you might actually panic for a second because, well, it's completely empty. It's kind of like looking in your wallet the day after a massive holiday sale. But don't worry, the sender didn't forget to sign the transaction. The data simply moved. The scriptSig is empty because all of those absolutely crucial signatures and public keys have been neatly packed into the new witness stock, securely located at the back of the transaction. When we map it all out like this, you can really see how the parts function together as a single cohesive machine. We kick off with the 4-byte version, then, boom, our flare gun, the marker and flag. Next up, we have the inputs, which define the spending references, but remember, their scriptSig is usually totally empty now. Then the outputs, defining the recipients and the amounts. Next comes the witnesses area, holding stacks of items like your signatures and public keys. And finally, the locktime. Honestly, it is incredibly elegant once you see the whole thing laid out systematically. Now, as we're busy counting all these inputs, outputs, and witness items, we run into a term you definitely should know: the compact size integer. I know, it sounds highly technical, but it's really just Bitcoin's clever way of saving precious block space. Instead of using a massive, fixed amount of bytes just to say something simple like, "I have 2 items in the stack," Bitcoin uses variable length integers to encode item lengths and counts dynamically. It's essentially a space-efficient tally counter built right into our blueprint. For all the builders tuning in, think about the Python parsing logic for a second. You convert your hex, check for your 0x000, 0x01 marker, skip past the standard inputs and outputs, and then read those compact-sized integers to extract your raw witness bytes. And honestly, exploring code snippets and building these parsers from scratch is exactly the kind of hands-on work students dive deep into during Forge College programs. Getting your hands dirty with the actual code is by far the best way to make these abstract concepts finally click. Section 4, Mapping Inputs, Parallel Data Vectors.
So here is the real kicker. The witness data operates as a parallel vector. What that means in plain English is there is a strict one-to-one mapping. Every single input has a corresponding witness stack in the exact same order. You read input 0, its signature is waiting for you in witness stack 0. You read input 1, its signature is right there in witness stack 1. It's a perfectly aligned buddy system. This ensures that even though the signatures are segregated all the way at the back, the network knows exactly which signature unlocks which input without any confusion.
And you might be wondering, why go through all this trouble of setting up a parallel buddy system? Well, because of this reality right here. By keeping the witness stacks logically mapped but structurally separated, the signatures are completely removed from the canonical txid calculation. This isolates the spending data. It means no malicious third party can intercept and modify the signature bytes to inadvertently change the transaction's core identity. You have completely mathematically neutered transaction malleability. Boom, problem solved.
Section 5, Why Byte Structure Matters, Practical Realities. This byte structure matters because you don't have to just take my word for it. You can verify this yourself right now. Here is a quick step-by-step workflow you can try. Obtain a raw hex offline, identify that header and our 0x00 marker, parse through the inputs and outputs, extract the witness stacks, and then compute the legacy txid by deliberately ignoring those witness bytes. Seriously, I highly encourage you to pull a transaction off a Block Explorer and try annotating it manually. There is a profound aha moment when you verify these byte differences with your very own eyes. Furthermore, measuring these separated bytes reveals a massive economic implication for the network. Witness bytes, since they are kept securely in this separate structure, actually count less toward the total block weight than non-witness bytes do. Now, we are planting a seed here for our upcoming lessons, but just know that this specific structural separation is exactly what allows Bitcoin blocks to hold more transactions than they used to. It effectively scales the network without needing a hard fork. Pretty brilliant, right? Okay, let's bring it all home and summarize the crucial takeaways from today's engineering teardown. First, SegWit inserts a marker and flag immediately after the version. Second, the heavy witness region is relocated safely after the outputs. Third, there is a strict one-to-one mapping between the inputs and those new witness stacks. And finally, because of this elegant structure, the witness is completely excluded from the canonical txid computation. Which leads us perfectly to our final provocative question. How exactly does this new blueprint mathematically stop those malleability attacks dead in their tracks? And how exactly does it calculate that massive boost in network throughput? That is exactly what we are going to unpack in our next explainer. Keep exploring, keep building. This explainer was made by Forge College, so be absolutely sure to visit forge.college to dive into our deeper resources and master these Web3 fundamentals. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.